Good evening, everybody, and it's been a little while, I think, since we've done a GPG show. So thank you all very much for joining us. This evening we have a special guest on the show, though, who's going to be helping get through some of the topics from the past couple of weeks. We've got I'd say a hell of a lot to catch up on since our last show. We didn't pick the best of time, Luke. I think to take a little bit of a podcasting break. I think considering everything that's been going on in the world. So, but yeah, we do have two fourths of the one half of the normal GPG group. Unfortunately, Pucks isn't able to join us. Flap is still taking a little bit of a break at the moment, but we do have a good friend, Luke Steele. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, it's not bad. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've there's been a lot of news actually since we took a break, which is ironic. We can have a talk about them all. I think lots to talk about.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think we might actually struggle to get everything in the normal 90 minutes to 2 hours, to be perfectly honest. We might have to skip a few things. So, but helping us chat through the past couple of weeks in news, we do have a special guest, friend of the show, Mav, from Fun Speculation. How are you doing there, Mav?
Doing good, man. It's like coming home here whenever I get to talk to you guys. It's been a while. This was one of the first shows that once I started my podcast, I started watching more other community shows, and this was one of the first shows that I became a fan of early on, like over 2 years ago now. It's been crazy. So time flies, but yeah, it's good to hop in here and get caught up with all of these games that were announced and shown over the last couple weeks with you guys here. So it's been a minute, guys, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on as always. It's been a little while. I was saying in the green room there, it's been a little while since we've had the pleasure of catching up. We caught up on Indie's show a little while back, discussing that stuff fall. So it's great. It's great to have you. Great to have you on. It has been a couple of weeks, maybe even longer since we last did a show. Unfortunately, scheduling has been a little bit tricky. In fact, we do have Luke is joining us from his sick bed at the moment. He's not feeling the greatest. Are you, Luke, right now?
I'm not, but I am a GPG soldier, so I must continue.
Yeah. In fact, you had to skip EGX as well this weekend, didn't you? Unfortunately,
I did. I got to see all the great pictures, none of which had fucking me in them. So, it looked like an awesome time. I also saw the elusive face of Indie Gamer.
Did you? I didn't see that one. You'll have to share it.
He's hideous. He's not. He's a great looking chap. But yes, I'll let him share it. I think he'd like to do a bit of a face reveal. Although, actually, with the amount of pictures going about, you might be able to see him actually. But it looked like everybody had a really good time, which is great. And it's just a shame I have to wait another year to go now, really. So there we go.
My plan originally was to try and go, but just with the effects of everything being so damn expensive and same for when I did have to take a pass on this year. But hopefully next year I'll be able to join you there, Luke. I did have a very serious case of like EGX FOMO earlier this week when I was seeing the pictures of everyone meeting up for the first time, seeing each other. It seemed really just cool for people from the community to be just meeting each other and hanging out and seeing some cool games and stuff. So Mav, EGX is kind of like a UK based game show, nothing major, nothing big, it's not like E3, but I think it's a cool place for people to meet up. And it was going to be Indie was going to be there. Luke and Indie were going to be showing each other Steam Decks. I think was kind of the plan.
It's not Flap.
Yeah, Flap and Pugs did manage to sneak down over the weekend, I think, though. So it'll be good to hear from those guys how they found the show. If next time we have a chance to catch up, and maybe next year if we got enough people going, we could do a little bit of a GPG meetup, which would be nice.
That'd be great.
So, Yeah. Before we get into any topics, just want to say thanks to a couple of the regulars in the chat. We got BMG and Misuku in there at the moment. If anyone else is watching, please say hi. Let us know what you've been, what news has caught your eye over the past couple of weeks, and we'll see if we can cover it. Yeah, BMG just says he feels like it's been a few months, and it really does, mate. It does feel like it's been a few months, but it's good. It's good to be back. So yeah, without further ado, I guess we've got a few things to pick through this evening, Jen. So does anyone have anywhere they'd like to start?
Where do you want to start? Do you want to go back to the state of play? I think that was kind of one of the ones that happened more recently.
Yeah, we can start there. I mean, September 13th is kind of the new E3. It seems we had a direct and state of play on. I think it was the 13th, wasn't it? Or the 12th. One of the two. Yeah.
It all blends in. The Gamescom, Tokyo Game Show, and state of play all blended in together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially when there's been just so much other stuff. Like as part of TGS at the US Xbox thing, there was the Yakuza or now Like a Dragon stuff was there. Yeah, it was just, it seemed every day something else was happening. And we're not going to touch on it tonight, but you've got the CMA stuff going on in the background. You've got the public match between Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan going on in the background. You had all the Halo stuff in the past few weeks as well, on top of everything else. We're probably not going to touch on either of those things tonight, though. I think those have all been done to death at this point, but maybe on a future show when something
BMG
happens.
wants us to have a Jim Ryan versus Phil Spencer podcast.
Well, once upon a time, not too long ago, I did get Luke to channel his Phil Spencer, and it was quite a moment. So maybe, Mav, if you could channel your Jim Ryan, then maybe we could have it out on air. Maybe, although it would be better maybe the other way around, considering Jim Ryan's British and Phil Spencer's American.
All I gotta do is just raise the prices, and I can channel my Jim Ryan.
That's I mean, it's something. I'm not too sure.
Isn't it, partner? Lad?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like somebody's doing like a really bad impression of like the Oliver play or something like that.
It's like my Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins, almost.
What I will say though, Mav, is it's a hell of a lot better than my American accent, which I won't use because that wouldn't go down well. And you've just offended most Brits with that one, Mav.
Oh, have I? I'm sorry, I don't know the rules.
No, I'm just messing with it. I'm just messing. So yeah, the Sony State of Play. We can start there. It was a bit low key, I think, if dare I say it. I mean, at least leading up to it, it was obviously announced as focused and primarily on third party and Japanese partners, and it was only, I believe, around 20 minutes. But I think the general consensus was that it was a pretty damn good show, from at least from my perspective and from speaking to people like Luke. So what did you guys think?
You want to go first, Luke?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I went into it with pretty low expectations, which is maybe one of the reasons a lot of people really enjoyed it, because we knew it wasn't going to be a showcase because they'd said that, so it wasn't going to be like the big show. And they said it was going to focus mainly on Japanese partners, and then what you actually got was like a very short show, but packed full of really cool stuff, I thought. And I remember coming out of it and, thinking that, 7 out of 10 of the games that were there, because there were 10 games total, I was interested in. So, which is pretty good, final score really for these type of events. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Standouts probably, I thought Tekken 8 looked fantastic. I did not expect that to be there, but I just thought it looked really amazing actually. Visually, not I historically quite enjoyed Tekken, but it's not something that I go out and buy all the time. So it kind of blew me away, really. Like a Dragon.
It was just a really good trailer. Sorry, just on Tekken.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a really good
great trailer
for a fighting game as well, because I think fighting games can sometimes struggle with reveals.
Yep.
But I thought that was an excellent trailer. A really good muscle bulge at one
Yes,
point.
yes.
I hope you can do that in a
bulge.
game. I hope if you do a special move, that happens in the game.
Happens,
so.
yeah. It seems like it might do, because it seemed like some kind of like trigger move, like something you could like almost like power up your character at that point, and it would give you that sort of bulging muscle reveal.
Yeah.
So I hope that's common in the game, because I did think it was really cool, and it was just super detailed as well. It was just really cool. So yeah, that was great. Like a Dragonician, I thought looked awesome. Rise of the Ronin was a big surprise. I thought that looked really cool. And then obviously they ended it on the Ragnarok story trailer, which I just think is probably I think I said this at the time, it's probably the best trailer I'd seen since the kind of big bombastic Breath of the Wild trailer, which was just epic before that came out. So I thought it looked just incredible. But I kind of wish almost that I hadn't seen that trailer, because the developers came out afterwards and said, look, it's just kind of tip of the iceberg stuff. There's loads of stuff we're not revealing. There's going to be tons of surprises, but the sheer variation of things that were happening on screen, and like the little hints at boss battles and stuff, they're the kind of trailers you almost wish you hadn't seen, just so you could go in blind. But luckily I've forgotten all but like 2 scenes from it, so I think I think that's pretty good. But yeah, it just looked great. I mean, and yeah, the whole show, 20 minutes, just really tight, packed full of stuff, really cool stuff. I do hope they still have a showcase, because I think they still need to have a showcase. I think that's still important for them to have one this year, but who knows when that'll be now. I mean, we're coming out of September very soon, so it doesn't look like it's going to be this month. So, don't know. Let's wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, man, what were your thoughts on the state of play? Did you enjoy it?
It was maybe my favorite state of play I've ever watched. Or like, this wasn't supposed to replace like a big E3 show or whatever, you know what I mean? I've kind of like, when I view state of plays, I kind of view them, especially when this was announced as a 20-minute one, right? I kind of view them as like, like a Nintendo Direct style thing, right? Where it's just kind of frequent updates on things, and maybe every few months we get one. Sometimes when they have multiple games releasing, we get more frequently. And when they said this was 20 minutes, I was kind of like really expecting a really bad show, to be honest, because last October they had a state of play that was the worst gaming thing I've ever seen, period. I believe it was like mid-October, and I think the highlight was We Are OFK was like the best game they showed there, in Star Ocean. Like there was like nothing big or like exciting really for a lot of people in that show. So I was kind of anticipating this was going to be a dumping ground for things that they had signed marketing contracts on, right? Almost. And when this started, though, I was like, okay, starting off with Tekken 8. Holy crap. All right, you already got my juices flowing. This is starting off really good. And then it just kept going, and it was a fantastic show. It achieved a lot of different things that I wasn't anticipating, which is making me excited for games that I never was excited for before, like God of War Ragnarok. That trailer was amazing. And that was a perfect way to end the show, because I'm not a big God of War fan. I never really could get into it. But this actually got me excited to play, because they showed a lot of variation in the environments and in the characters and the enemies, which was something that was missing more at least in the first half of the last game that I played. And I think that this has kind of invigorated some hype for me around a lot of the games there. So when I was co-streaming it, I gave it a 9. The one game that didn't really do anything for me was Pacific Drive. It was kind of like the Griswolds meets Ghostbusters almost, is like driving through that station wagon through the environment, which it seems like I don't know, some people thought that game looked pretty cool. But then they had Hogwarts Legacy showing there. They had a couple new games. There's the new Yakuza game from like 1800s Japan that looked absolutely amazing. Then they also had Let's see, Project Eve, which was named Stellar Blade. That was a standout, and the last 3 or 4 games in a row that they showed was like, holy crap! Like these were made for me, you know. So there was Stellar Blade, and then there was my personal thing that I'm the most excited about from this entire showcase was Rise of the Ronin, which was a PlayStation exclusive game that was the second to last game shown. This was a brand new game announcement, which I also love when these shows have a big new game announcement, right? So Rise of the Ronin was shown, plus it was exclusive for PlayStation, and it's another Team Ninja project. But this looked kind of like almost like a Ghost of Tsushima type game. It looks more open, and it's in that almost in the same era that the Yakuza game was in. However, this is more. It gave me Last Samurai vibes. If y'all are familiar with the Tom Cruise movie, The Last Samurai, when that era in Japan, when it's kind of a fight over, you know, the new Japan and the old, right? It gave me a lot of those vibes, and you get to play as a uh, samurai, look kind of fighting for their survival. It kind of seems like I don't know. It just seemed really awesome, and I'm really pumped for that game. So overall, man, I think this was a fantastic state of play. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to expectations, as you said, though, Mav. I think we'll touch on the Nintendo Direct soon, I'm sure. But I think anytime you go into any of these events, your expectations is ensuring you've got the appropriate expectations is really important. I think not to go back too far, but if you remember the Xbox sort of summer/E3 showcase, I think one of the big issues that they had for that show was just expectations going into it, where they didn't set them correctly. And I think that impacted a lot of people's views. And I think this one, because it was a short show, as he said, because it was focused on third-party content, people went in with low expectations, but they came out pretty happy. I think the only sort of negative to the show I would have said is I didn't think the bit in the middle about the PlayStation stars or whatever that stuck out like a sore thumb. But at the same time, it was a couple of minutes tops, if maybe a minute and a half, something like that. So it was inoffensive, I guess. But I think, you know, everything else was, even if you weren't interested in like the VR section, didn't interest me an awful lot. But you know, I don't expect to go into any showcase and be interested in everything that they show. You know, I don't think anyone would. But yeah, it was a pretty damn good show. And Luke, as you mentioned, you're hoping we've got another showcase at some point this year. It was September last year they did their big showcase, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And the one before, well, I think.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, obviously, in September. So maybe it comes a little bit later this year. But I think one of the big questions I would maybe have for Sony is what's their 2023 lineup looking like? Because I don't think we know an awful lot about next year for PlayStation sort of first party at this stage, do we?
No, I mean, I think they've said before. I mean, that they announced Spider-Man 2 when they revealed that game for next year. Whether it will hit, I think, is another question. It's difficult to know just because we don't exactly know where it is in development. So I think if they had a showcase, I think you'd at least probably expect to see that, you know, maybe just a gameplay slice. You know, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, again, slated for next year. Again, whether that will hit is another question. But yeah, I think, I mean, apart from that, I don't think we know much about that 2023. Obviously, a lot of it will, you know, there's a big VR focus next year.
Yeah.
So with the launch of that and the games that will go with it, presumably we will get a proper, you know, if there was one game I think will release next year, it would probably be whatever Naughty Dog's Factions game is, you know, their multiplayer Last of Us. I think that's man. Probably...
Like the one thing on that is all they showed at the Game Award at Keeley's show or whatever the last time was a concept art. Yeah, they're early. So it's like I don't know. Like I want to believe that could be 2023, but like it just seems I think it's so early still.
It's a little strange that they only showed concept art because I think it's been in development for quite a long time. And I know that Ben Studio were helping with it to some extent as well. So whether they just weren't ready to show it too early, because I mean, if you look at like even stuff like Ragnarok, like it's only just until recently that we've actually had a bit of a blowout with it, but that's still slated for this year. So it seems like they don't want to show too much of this stuff. They did say when they revealed the Last of Us factions thing that there'll be more information coming next year on it. So yeah, I don't know whether it will release. I think. Yeah. Maybe, but yeah, it just depends on where it is. But I really want to see that
time with it, though, right? Because it's supposed to be like a big live service type style game now with ongoing content, and maybe they see all these games that have struggled with the ongoing content. They want to make sure that they get that pipeline right before they release it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm just intrigued as to what it is. It's clearly not just a factions mode like the first Last of Us. It's not that. But how big is it? What's the core of the game? They didn't. The concept art looked like it was pretty ambitious from the look of it. And I guess that they talked about story being quite important. So I don't know. In my head, I have this kind of weird expectation of like a Division type game, but
it's funny you say that, Luke. That's the first thing that came to my head as well, was something Division like, in a way where there'll be PvE and PvP areas.
Yeah, something like that, I think, and that's the way you would get a kind of storyline in that type of service game as well. It has to be something like that, rather than just a battle royale where you can't really do story. Like I think Naughty Dog want to do story, but yeah, and it just makes that type of Division game just makes total sense for the world of The Last of Us. So yeah, that's what I hope it is, but I don't know if that's what it actually is, But it kind of goes together with the hints that they've given out on it, and also with them saying how ambitious it is and how long it's taken to develop. So, we'll see. But I think that could be a really big hit if they do that right, because I think, it could be a really cool world to play in.
Yeah, and it'll be good for Sony, I think, to get a good live service game under the belt as well. It's not something they've typically done first party outside of maybe Gran Turismo. Can't think of too many games that they've had, that they've even attempted, never mind had success with.
Well, they're doing that more, right? So they said there's 10 coming. They bought Bungie, so that's already injecting Destiny into their fold as well. So I think that we're going to see this new PlayStation kind of come out with ways of monetizing these games and keeping them alive for longer, so there's less one and done, and still that they're going to have a focus on these story-based games for sure, but you're going to see more than that just from them this generation. I think that was their MO last generation, just story-based one and done content, and a lot of people loved it, right? I'm not trying to say it's bad, it's just in the kind of digital future of gaming where we're going with how long these games take to develop, you kind of want to have these games, if you're spending 6-7 years on making one, to have a long lifespan. You know what I mean? So I think that we're going to see more and more of that. But I'm still curious about their 2023, man. Like, I don't know. I want to take a stab at what they could have, but it's really, besides Spider-Man 2 and Forspoken, which is a third-party game, I don't really know 100%, and I think the third-party exclusives is kind of going to be what really fills out Sony's 2023, unless they have some big surprises for us. Forspoken, maybe Final Fantasy 16 hits next year.
Yeah, they've already announced that for summer of next year, I think, and then Final Fantasy 7 remake the end of the year. I mean, to be fair, if they do have Spider-Man factions, Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 remake, I think they could probably stop there and put their feet up and go, we're done. But I think going back to the point you made just a few moments ago, Mav, I think one of the key things, I think this is on both sides, PlayStation and Xbox, is like just having a bit more variety. Xbox has been very much, I guess, the live service multiplayer focus with a lot of their games, and they're trying to bring in more single player games and story focused games into their portfolio, because obviously they need that variety for Game Pass.
Yeah.
And obviously PlayStation is pretty much the opposite, and what they're trying to do is address their lack of, I guess, multiplayer or live service focused games with some of the acquisitions they made and some of the partnerships as well. So yeah, it's interesting how they're kind of going to be going, I guess, taking a leaf out of each other's books for kind of their future plans.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hope we get another show this year. I just don't foresee it really, because I think this was kind of their, even though it was only 20 minutes, it was kind of like their, hey, this is our best show we got for this year type thing, because there was quite a few big games in there, and quite a few of them were console exclusive as well. So another one was that a Stellar Blade, which was previously announced as coming to Xbox and other platforms, is now only on PlayStation, right? So
Yeah.
that one was very interesting to see that, and that game looks absolutely amazing. So across the board, it seems like there was a few exclusives. The Rise of the Ronin as well, even though that one I believe is 2024. Were shown here that could be 2023, and that are exclusive games. So if we were having a bigger show, I would think they could have just saved that stuff for the bigger show. You know what I mean? Like, because it would have made even a bigger impact. Because otherwise, there'd be no point in having this 20-minute state of play. Because they had some heavy hitters in there, like Tekken 8 was in there. You had a God of War Ragnarok, which they got to have God of War Ragnarok, because God of War is coming out in November, right? But if you're going to have something in November, then that's too close to the Game Awards, in my opinion, and too close to when Ragnarok drops. So if they didn't have a big state of play in September, which we know they haven't now, then I don't foresee another one this year. And if they did, it would be something like we got in October last year, which is like, was the dumping of random little things. You know what I mean? They had like Star Ocean, they had We Are OFK, and a bunch of small like indie type games, and that was how their October show.
It wasn't a showcase though, was it? That one, it was just a showcase. Crappy state of play.
It was a state of play, and it had a lot of hype behind it. And wow, there was a lot of people like, "What was that?" You know.
I think that was the one that really set people's expectations for state of players going forward. Because I think a few before that had been decent. I mean, it depends, because they obviously have the state of players that are focused on a game, which exactly. I think obviously gets people excited. But they also have state of players where they kind of not random, but obviously there's a more there's less of a single game focus. I think that one that you mentioned, Mav, I think that really was the one that kind of changed people's expectations around state of players going forward. Like
a dumping ground of marketing contracts that they had not fulfilled their obligations of, or something like that. It just was weird. I don't understand exactly why that state of play existed. However, I am glad that a state of plays and Nintendo Directs are a thing. I like the frequent updates that we get on games and more shows, as opposed to just one big show. I think Xbox should do that as well. I think they have so many studios and so many games that they could kind of look at what those other companies are doing and take a stab at trying to do something like that as well as their big show. I think that would have helped also for when Xbox had the, hey, only 12 months. We're only looking 12 months ahead at the C3 or whatever. I think that would have helped that case a lot if we had other updates on some of these other games that we know are in the works, right?
Yeah.
So, and maybe they just do more dev diaries or more Q&A videos with the devs, or show more concept art or something to keep the communities engaged. But when they stay radio silent on these projects for years, it's kind of hard to like know what to expect or how those games are doing,
Yeah, Microsoft are very focused on kind of the old traditional E3 being the one big blow a year method, which obviously Sony and Nintendo have kind of both got away from. It'll be interesting if they do change tact. People have speculated that we might get an XO maybe this year, where we do get a bit of a a bit of an update. But I guess going back to one of your earlier points, Mav, is would that be a bit closer to the Game Awards? Because
Yeah, exactly.
we'd likely see something big at the Game Awards from Microsoft because they've done that for the past few years now.
Yeah, past 3 years, I think they've had big stuff at the Game Awards, and there's no reason not to expect it again this year. And that's from PlayStation as well. I think we're going to see a couple of big hitters there, and maybe this is where you see a couple of new big game announcements from first party from both. Because one thing about the Game Awards, you're capturing the whole gaming audience, right? Like if you don't own an Xbox, you're still probably going to tune into the Game Awards. If you don't own a PlayStation, you're still going to tune into the Game Awards. If you only game on PC, you still might tune into the Game Awards, right? If you own a Nintendo, you still might tune into the Game Awards, right? So you're kind of casting a wide net at the whole gaming audience, and there's other reasons for the casuals to watch this. Oh, is my favorite game going to get an award or whatever, And
no one watches it for the awards, Mav.
maybe
No one
the
cares for the
Slim
awards.
faction, maybe, I don't know, but everybody wants to see what's going to be revealed, to be honest. And there's a chance that your favorite platform or where you game might get a brand new big game announced at this show, right? And I think that is part of the magic of it. Keely's done a good job at giving an excuse to have the Game Awards with the awards, right? And then also having this spectacle of game announcements, and the game announcements have gotten better and better, it seems like, each year. Remember, this is the same platform where we first saw Elden Ring, which was teased at the Game Awards years back. You know what I mean? So I think that this has got a really good chance that we see some exciting things. And if there's big announcements left from either platform, that's where I would expect it.
Yeah, but it would be strange to not go the entire year without that big showcase from PlayStation, wouldn't it, Luke?
Yeah, I think it'd be weird. I mean, there's things that make me feel like there's still a showcase to come. One of which is, I don't know if people saw this, but we had that Helldivers 2 leak, which was a leak of actual trailer footage. It was clearly a PS5 trailer as well. And that's clearly ready to be revealed. So where is the question? Now, it could be that is going to be PlayStation's thing at the Game Awards, right? It would kind of fit the type of stuff they do at the Game Awards, some kind of game reveal or something like that. It's not a huge one. I mean, I really loved Helldivers, but it's not as if it's a massive reveal. But there's that. I mean, there's been various insiders sort of actual insiders, not people talking nonsense, but who have hinted that there's still something to come. So I'd just be surprised if they didn't do a proper showcase, because I think they do like doing them. Clearly, even without E3, they've still stuck to a yearly schedule of doing a big showcase, and even Nintendo kind of do this where they have a big direct, which is obviously what they did a few weeks ago, which is their kind of yearly, they have multiple directs, but they have one that is usually intended to be the big direct for that year. And I think as well they've got a lot to, like, from a first party perspective. If you actually look at what they've got behind the scenes, I'm sure they've got quite a lot they could show or that they could talk about. So it would be a bit surprising if they just said nothing. But I think, I don't know when that would be. I think October would probably be the best month, because, as you say, otherwise you're getting too close to God of War Ragnarok, or you're getting too close to the Game Awards. So after October, if there's no showcase, it's likely, probably not. And they've also got PSVR 2, obviously, which they still need to reveal details for and have, probably some more showcase stuff for. So it just seems like you would do all of that in an actual PS showcase of 40, 50 minutes. But I don't know. I mean, it would surprise me if they didn't have one. But maybe this is just the year where they just go, you know what? No, we're happy right now. We don't need to have one, and we'll have one another time. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess with the format they're going for, and they've kind of been able to take advantage of it by just changing the time. They've not had the big showcase in June like they traditionally have for the past couple of years now, since they sort of left E3. But I agree it would be weird, but I guess it is almost a matter of timing, is it? Because I would imagine, look, if it was in October, you would think that maybe God of War, that would be the one that you show the God of War thing a month out from release. Is it? No, it is November. It's coming out. Isn't it November?
November.
10th?
Yeah.
So yeah, you would have
9th,
thought
something.
if they were going to have that particularly I guess first party showcase, then that would be the one that you show that excellent God of War trailer in, or will they just go an October showcase without mentioning God of War, which is their big release the following month, or will they show something more? Because I guess they probably don't want to spoil anymore. As you said, like, you kind of wish you didn't see it. So I imagine you probably don't want to see anything else.
No,
If they were
no.
to do that,
I
so,
would turn it off if anything else came up.
yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll
Yeah.
be good to see, because those showcases are always good just to get a little bit of a vision into the future. I think the one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing something of, which I don't think we will until next year, if I'm being completely honest, but is the Insomniac Wolverine game. I know obviously the next focus will be Spider-Man, but very much looking forward to seeing whatever or how that actually ends up looking. I know people have got high hopes for that.
I think it will look pretty spectacular, knowing Insomniac. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, but obviously we've touched on Nintendo a little bit, so maybe we'll move on to the Nintendo Direct next. Obviously, this was their sort of big one of the year, one of many directs that they've had this year. So, yeah, Mav, did you watch the Nintendo Direct from a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I did. Another stellar show. A lot of people didn't like it because it had
Ah,
a
okay,
lot of
interesting.
yeah, a lot of people had had a lot of JRPG games and stuff, and farming simulators and things like that, or farming games, whatever. And a lot of people aren't big fans of those kind of games. I'm a huge JRPG fan, so I loved the show. Actually, it had a lot of stuff for me, and it's actually made me kind of feel crappy that I don't have a Switch currently. And I'm still waiting on that new hardware to really truly get me ultra excited about anything coming out on the platform. Just because I feel like all these game announcements, there's always that thing in the back of my mind knowing that the device isn't quite something that I like to play on itself. But the games are just so freaking cool, man. And so many of these JRPGs and stuff are just speaking my language. I'm glad that Octopath Traveler 2 is also coming to PC. So I can try maybe playing that on Steam Deck or PC or PlayStation as well. I don't know why that's skipping Xbox, but overall they had a lot of good stuff, man. I was kind of actually really impressed. They also had Fire Emblem Engage, which it looked like a return to form for Fire Emblem for me. I wasn't a big fan of Three Houses. I preferred like a Fire Emblem Awakening. I also like tactics games a lot. So Three Houses, there's too much of like the school aspect, walking around, talking, but go running back and forth constantly. It kept me out of the actual gameplay loop in that game. This game, Engage, looks like it's kind of maybe hopefully a return to getting back to what matters the most with Fire Emblem. Um, and let's see, there was also the Kirby game actually looked cool for people that are into Kirby. It Takes Two's coming out for Switch, which is one of my favorite games of all time. That's maybe the best co-op game ever made. Tunic's making its way there as well. Man, there's just so much stuff. Bayonetta 3 was shown. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 had, I think, DLC announced as well. And like I said, I'm a tactics fan, right? Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope looks absolutely awesome. That's one of my favorite. Kingdom Battle, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle was one of my favorite games on the Switch so far. So that has me actually really interested. But yeah, man, there's just so much stuff. Harvestella looked pretty cool. Um, there's Atelier Riza 3. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It looked really cool as well. Um, yeah, Sifu's making its way there. This was like a really good show, man. It was like what 50 minutes or so, 45, 50 minutes of just nonstop solid games. So they did a great job with the showcase. I think Nintendo shows that they have a huge pipeline of content coming.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Mav. I actually thought it was a pretty poor show.
Yeah,
All things considered, maybe for some of the reasons that you mentioned. I think a lot of the games that they spoke about, obviously, I think aside, we'll probably come on to obviously the show closer in a moment, so I'll skip past that for now. But I think you mentioned the likes of Bayonetta, Xenoblade, etc. These are obviously things that we've seen a lot of in the past, and a lot of the other games were maybe games that are already out on other platforms, or maybe cloud versions of games, and with Resident Evil as an example. So it didn't really do anything for me until the very end. If I'm being honest, I thought the ending really saved the show. I thought the pacing was maybe, I don't know, it felt almost too quick, but then I also feel like it was too long as a show. I kind of feel it should have been maybe cut a lot of the content and maybe make it a little bit shorter. But games like Fire Emblem and Pikmin, for example, even though the Pikmin trailer was absolutely nothing, it didn't really do an awful lot for me. And Octopath Traveler, actually, that was probably my second highlight from the show, Mav. And I'm so pissed off about that announcement because that game obviously came to Game Pass on Xbox. The first game's not on PlayStation, and yet the second one's not coming to Xbox but is coming to PlayStation. It's just it's a little frustrating when things like that happen. But it's good that it's coming to PC, like you say, because I will be able to pick it up there if I don't pick it up on the Switch. So and one thing maybe you didn't mention, Mav, and I'm not too sure what your thoughts are on this, but obviously this is where Perfect Dark was shown off, which was a lot of people were excited for. I think personally, I don't know why, and there was obviously a little bit of controversy around that.
GoldenEye.
Yeah, on GoldenEye. So
yeah.
I think for me personally, I think a lot of people are looking at that through rose-tinted specs, as you say here in the UK. I think there's a lot of nostalgia at play with that game. I think a lot of people will play it and they'll realize, it's maybe not too good by modern standards. I mean, and why would it? It's obviously bloody ancient now, but still, I think a lot of people are very excited for the game, and they're probably not going to play it for more than 10 or 15 minutes. So, but not a particularly good show for me personally. I'm glad to hear that you liked it, though. Obviously, there's
it depends on if you're into the kinds of games. It was heavy on farming games and heavy on JRPGs and tactics games, right? So if you're not into that kind of stuff, then it's not going to be for you. For me, it just had a lot of the kind of games that I like. But I heard a lot of the same sentiment out there, so it just depends, man. Like this show was kind of designed around me and my interests and some other people's as well, right? So if you're into more of like, you just want to see more Mario or Zelda, which they did have Zelda. Well, they had Zelda here too, right? Like which ended the show. The new Breath of the Wild game. But if it seems like some people when they watch like Nintendo shows, like they want, if you don't see the Metroid Prime 4, you know what I mean, or like you don't see these big things that were promised, and it's kind of a failing of a show and I think when we review shows, we always review them kind of like based on what was at the show that I liked, right? And for me, there's a lot of stuff that I liked, but I completely understand if there's not a lot of stuff that other people didn't like. The one thing that would have topped it off is new hardware, which we still don't have any announcement, because regardless of how many games it looks like that I want to play on this thing, I know that when I hold it in my hands or plug it in and dock it into my TV, I'm going to feel like it's not as good of an experience as it could be. Right. And that's my main issue with Nintendo, is not the games, it's just the hardware. So I always have that in the back of my head when I'm watching these shows. Like I can't truly be as excited as I want to be. But that's a shame.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. I am clamoring for new Nintendo hardware at this point. The Switch is showing its age somewhat. I think the problem that I've got with it is I don't like using it in handheld, because I think ergonomically it's really poor. And then when playing docked, like on a 4K big TV,
65-inch 4K TV, it doesn't really show very well. Especially now, some of the Nintendo games themselves, like the Marios and stuff like that, they look pretty good on docked. You can get a lot of those at 1080 60. But it's these other big RPGs and these other games that come out that are like sometimes like 720, 900, and like 30 frames per second, and like even the text is blurry. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want that experience on a brand new game. I understand on a retro console, which people like, it doesn't bother me. I play 8-bit games. I play 16-bit games all the time, 32-bit games. Yeah, but you're playing on purpose old stuff, right? Not a brand new $60 game that you're having to purchase, and then you get that experience. So like, I get that Nintendo does what they do because they can, and it's selling really well because it's a really well made handheld device. But it just lacks with the console features that I would like to see these days. Now, it doesn't have to be a Series X or PS5 or anything like that, but handheld technology and mobile technology has gotten so advanced the last several years that it's just really dated on power, even for itself. Even the Logitech G Cloud that was just announced is a cloud device based on the cloud, right? They're not even going to try and put Xbox or PlayStation or games or anything like that natively on it because it can't, right? But that itself is more powerful than the Switch.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I would probably dispute that. It's only using like a mobile chipset, isn't it? Like a Snapdragon or something.
Using.
The Switch uses the Tegra X1, which is actually, I mean, now it's
based on the
slow,
NVIDIA Shield, isn't it?
But it's based on the NVIDIA Shield.
It's like an iPhone 6 tech, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch hardware is definitely dated. And to be fair, Mav, I don't know if you saw, there was just this past week, I'm pretty sure there was something going around about someone from like a NVIDIA spokesperson or something sort of confirming the existence of the rumored hardware that may allegedly power the next Switch. So it'll be interesting to see when that hardware comes. I'm most looking forward to it. I don't think it'll happen, but I wish they would just release sort of a traditional console.
I think that's out. Personally, I think that's out now. But like, when this new device comes out, eventually, it should be able to do 4K, and it should be able to do 60 frames at 1440 or something at least. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that. Well, it'll do 4K for sure because it'll have DLSS. But I think if we're expecting it to have comparable, let's take the Series S as a baseline, I don't think it will reach that console. I think we'll get.
Here's the thing, but on Nintendo style games, right? It doesn't have to do like Series S or Xbox the type games. I just want the Nintendo style games to look better. Right?
Yeah, I think DLSS will make a pretty significant difference to that element. It'll clearly be a much more capable device than the Switch. I think if you're expecting, I think the way the hardware to expect is probably about Steam Deck level. I would think around that
on the next Nintendo.
On the next Nintendo device, because they're going to be using at least a Tegra X2, which is really powerful, with all the NVIDIA features like DLSS. It might have some limited ray tracing support. It certainly can be built into. I think the leak put it at I can't remember if it put it the Ampere generation. It might have done for the new chip. So if it borrows some of those features, you might have RT support, albeit it'd be pretty limited.
Yeah.
But certainly it will be a massive leap over the existing Switch.
Yeah. You would hope so. I mean, it's just I guess from their perspective is they kind of don't need to rush it. That thing's selling so well at its original price point at the moment anyway. Like they don't necessarily have to rush that out maybe. So, but Luke, what were your thoughts on the Direct, mate?
I thought it was pretty good. I wasn't kind of blown away. I mean, there were certainly some things that I was really excited for. Pikmin 4 was a massive one for me. Just getting confirmation that they're actually making it, I think is great. Obviously, they don't show much of it, but you don't really need to show much of it. It's a Pikmin game; you kind of know what you're getting. And they at least showed a few screenshots, which looked like Pikmin, basically. So it looked quite nice visually, I thought, actually, from the screenshots. So that was cool. Bayonetta 3, like I know I'm going to get that anyway. So, they have shown that quite a lot, but equally they went through many years of not showing it at all. So like, again, I don't mind that they're showing it a lot now, because at least we know it's a very solid release date. Same with Sparks of Hope, which, again, they're showing a lot of at the moment, and they also showed a lot of the Ubisoft Forward event. But the first game was so special that I think that, I don't mind them showing a lot of this because it looks really, really good. Octopath Traveler 2, I couldn't really get into Octopath Traveler, but this one looks good again. So that was cool. I'm trying to think what else there was. I mean, lots of different things. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom was the big thing that they showed. Again, only a very brief snippet of the game, but with a release date as well, which is nice. Just, again, shows you how stacked next year is going to be.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good bet for Game of the Year, I think. I don't know if it will win it, but you would think it would be one of the front runners for that if they can get anywhere close to Breath of the Wild. And so it wasn't like it, there's been directs before that really blow me away. Lots of really cool reveals that I didn't expect. I always remember like the Metroid Prime 4 reveal one, for example. That sticks in the memory a lot. That was an amazing direct. But
was that the one where they just showed the logo for Metroid Prime 4, Luke?
Yes, that was the one where they showed the logo. Not one of their best for me. Fire Emblem Engage as well, I will say, looked really cool. I actually loved Free Houses, and I'm always happy to play more Fire Emblem games, so I thought that was a cool announcement to start with. So a lot of good stuff. Nothing that blew me away particularly, but like by the time next year comes around, again, they're going to have a great 2023 with, Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, presumably, Fire Emblem Engage. I'm sure they'll definitely have other stuff they're releasing next year. And they've had, Nintendo have had a fantastic year this year from a first party perspective as well. Splatoon 3, Pokemon's coming up, Bayonetta 3, all that stuff. So, they just keep rolling, really, don't they? They just keep on going and bringing out good stuff. But I do agree, it would be nice to get some new hardware next year from them.
Yeah, I've just seen a comment in the chat just on the hardware from Goggle Paul. Apologies if I mispronounced that. Where apparently the Switch target is Series S specs. I think that might be a bit of a stretch. I think getting Series S hardware into a handheld device and managing battery power and thermals might be a bit too much. I'm obviously not a tech expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it'll quite be Series S level of power. Yeah,
I think the Series S draws something like 75 watts from being plugged in. You're never going to get that in a handheld device. I mean, the Steam Deck only pulls maximum 34. And that's really, and when it does pull that, you're getting less than 2 hours battery life. So
that's the thing with handhelds, and why I say kind of I would like to see them go down a more traditional console route is because they've got to manage that the thermals of the device, and even when it's docked, I appreciate they can kind of unlock the power of it somewhat, but it's still constrained within the very sleek and slender device that is a Switch anyway. So there's still going to be that. That comparison, I guess, maybe with DLSS, if it depends on what version or in what way that exists within the Switch 2, then maybe combined with that, it has something similar. But because I think there's a lot of talk.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was a lot of talk around when the Steam Deck came out, and the initial impressions were really impressive about what the Steam Deck was able to do. I think a lot of people were talking about, why doesn't Microsoft release a handheld and just make a Series S into a handheld? And it's like, the Series S is obviously a really small console. I say a small console, if you compare it to something like a Wii, for example, it's actually about 3 times larger than a Wii or something like that, maybe even more. It's still a big console. You can't squeeze that down into a device, add a battery and add a screen and just expect the same performance,
Yeah, I agree. And I think DLSS is the thing that will lead to massive, performance gains in the new hardware. Obviously, excuse me while I off for a second. Okay, better now.
There we go.
While the hardware is obviously going to be much more capable than the Switch, whatever the Switch 2 or the Pro or whatever they're calling it would be. But the thing that will lead to massive gains will be DLSS, because it's just unbelievable, really. And it's the one travesty, I think, of the current gen, PS5 series consoles, that they're powered by AMD, because some of the stuff Nvidia is doing in terms of future proofing their architectures is really impressive, and DLSS is one of those, because if anybody's ever experienced it, it's quite remarkable what it can do. So
I think I guess maybe just to finish off on Tears of the Kingdom a little bit. I know you touched on it there, Luke. Obviously, it was good to get a release date for that. I did personally think it was a bad trailer for the game. Dare I say it? I don't think it was
just not much, was it? I think
it was kind of like a nothing trailer for a game that is relatively close to been in development. I mean, they've shown more of this game in the past when before it was tiled. So yeah, it was a bit of a nothing trailer. So we'll obviously have a direct closer to the launch of the game where we see a little bit more of that. But it was obviously good to just get confirmation of a release date. I mean, whether they hit that or not again is another matter. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another maybe short delay a little bit later into the year, maybe a month or two as we get closer. But it's good to finally have a little bit more information on that, even if it wasn't an awful lot. So, but yeah, it's funny, we've touched on Mario Rabbids a little bit, but when we were talking about what we should chat about tonight, not a single person said, "Oh, let's chat about the Ubisoft Forward." Surprisingly,
or G23 Expo. Yeah, those were not very good shows.
Yeah, that Ubisoft show was so bad. Like, it's just the entire format. It gave me it reminded me of those. Oh, what was the Xbox shows that they did on a monthly basis?
Inside Xbox.
It reminded me just a little bit of that way. It just made me cringe, kind of throughout. But I guess the standoff for that was Mario and Rabbids for me from the Ubisoft show. But yeah, just that entire presentation was just
even Skull and Bones, which is their big release this year, like all we saw was cannons being swapped out. You know what I mean? It's like I don't really get what that show's purpose was. There was some mobile stuff they showed for mobile gamers that seemed pretty cool, like the new Avatar mobile game looked actually promising. But overall, like that Ubisoft Forward, I was really excited about it. I had a lot of hopes that we could see a lot of cool stuff, and it's minus the Assassin's Creed segment at the end, which was already spoiled because of leaks, was really just not worth watching at all. And I think Ubisoft needs to hire somebody else that does their productions on these shows, because you got about, in this showcase, I don't even know how long it was. It's probably like less than an hour, but you got about 80% of the show was somebody standing in front of a camera and turning to face different cameras, right? Like it was just like talking heads the whole time, and with little snippets of gameplay or trailers mixed in. And nobody wants to tune into a show to see that. We want to see the games, right? We want to see what you're working on. We don't want to see some announcers, some host sit there and like, all right, hey, this is us. Look at us. Oh, wait, we got to turn and face this camera and talk for another 5 minutes. Oh, then we're going to turn and face this camera and talk for another 5 minutes. And then, check this game out. And then you see 10 seconds and then back to that. Nobody wants to see that,
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. Their whole, even when they did the other game announcements they have, like when they announced Frontlines originally, that was since canceled. When they announced X Defiant, and some of these other games, the way they present them with this, like, I think when X Defiant was announced, like they had this abandoned warehouse with graffiti everywhere, and the guy just standing there talking for forever. It's like, what is going on right now? Like, just be normal. Let's just see like a freaking game trailer and announcement, and like let's let it be that, and maybe you generate some more hype. And there's some positives to take away, especially with Assassin's Creed and where that's headed. But besides besides the Assassin's Creed segment, which could have been an entirely separate thing, right? I didn't really see any value in the show.
Yeah, and as someone who's not interested in Assassin's Creed, like there was very, very, very little there. I still think I have nightmares about that X-Defiant reveal where they had like the kind of the office / warehouse, and then they had one guy that was dressed like a bit smarter, and then the other guy that was dressed, and they described it as like, did they say like it was a punk rock mosh pit? They said something like that. Yeah. I just that reveal was horrendous, and I think they've since dropped the Tom Clancy's name from that. I think it's now just X-Defiant. Because I remember seeing at the time we looked at it, and I remember seeing the kind of the way that they had changed up the Tom Clancy logo just for that. It was like spray painted X-Defiant over Tom Clancy. There, it was just it was. I think Ubisoft have a really just. I don't think I've ever enjoyed a Ubisoft show because, as you say, Mav, there's just too much talking. There's the host talking, and then they switch to someone else talking about the game. It's they really need to try and figure that out, because it was unbelievably poor from my perspective. Although I know a lot of people did enjoy getting the lowdown on the future of Assassin's Creed, which I'm sure is exciting for people who like that franchise, but not for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And then
are y'all excited for Mirage or Hexe at all? Like Mirage seems really cool because it seems like a back to the roots.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that, actually, because, as you say, it is basically going back to, well, I won't say Assassin's Creed 1 because that was dog shit, but Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, etc., the actual really good AC games. It's going back to that, and those are the ones I loved. Yeah. So I think that's really cool. It looks like Hex is going to be again something like that from the kind of. I mean, they didn't really talk about it at all, but just from the wording they've had around the game being a different type of experience. Again, it looks like it's not your standard Assassin's Creed. So I'm quite excited about that. I guess Red, codename Red, which is the Japanese proper full AC RPG experience, like that does get me excited to some extent, because anything in that setting would, even modern day Assassin's Creed, and I do think, if they have that game be a current gen only game and it's not cross gen, then that is exciting. But I don't know. I tend to get the same kind of, I'm quite looking forward to this, and then I play it and then I remember why I don't like it, and then I just stop. So it's just, I don't know why I get myself somewhat excited for this stuff when I know I don't particularly enjoy it, but I will give it, I'll give it a go. But I'm definitely excited for Mirage, because it's back to, as you say, it's back to Boots basics, really, of the franchise, which is better than nothing.
But again, they showed nothing. Did they show any gameplay?
No, they showed that 2-minute CG trailer.
Yeah, but this game's meant to be coming out early next year, isn't it? And they talked about the future, and they didn't show any gameplay of. And then they showed Assassin's Creed.
those patented UB bull shots afterwards. Those super with 16 times MSA anti-aliasing on them that look super clean. They showed those gameplay shots. So. Yeah.
Was Watch Dogs the original bullshot?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you had bullshots back in the magazine days and stuff, but Watch Dogs was a really big one.
The original bullshot, actually, I mean, there were lots of original bullshots. The original UB bullshot, from what I remember, was actually the first Far Cry. So that was, prime bullshot city, which they've kept up. But the most infamous bullshot video was that original Watch Dogs gameplay reveal.
The first Division reveal as well.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, that got closer, I'd say, than the final game got closer than Watch Dogs' final game did too.
That's one of the reasons that I'm kind of okay with the first time you show a game, have a cool sizzle reel trailer or some kind of cinematic trailer, just to kind of give an idea of the story or like what the character is or the setting. And then the
Yeah.
next second time though, you better bring some gameplay, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this segment with Assassin's Creed was more about the history of Assassin's Creed and where Assassin's Creed is going as a whole, not just necessarily specific about one game. So I think it kind of fit within that because they also teased Hex, which is way further out, right?
Yeah.
And how that was going to work with the, the Infinity idea they
Yeah.
have for bringing them all together. But then they also specified that, hey, there's going to be, you know, different kinds of Assassin's Creed games going forward. There's going to be the big open RPG ones, which when we saw Assassin's Creed Red, that was like, yes, because that has me hyped, dude. You got Assassin freaking Ninja, Assassin's Creed in Japan, and it's going to be that one specifically. I want one of the big open world ones, right? Because that for me, I want to live in that world. You know what I mean? But with the other games, like you're going to have these different experiences, so it's going to cater to different audiences within the same franchise. So I actually like the direction now that they're heading with that because if you're an old school enthusiast, you got these games. If you like the more open games, which there's a lot of people that do, um, they got those for you as well. And then they're going to have different stuff, which they said Hex was different than anything they were making also. And the people behind that one, which has like witchcraft and witches and all this kind of stuff in it, is really stellar. Like I think Clint Hawking is actually behind that game, which he has a really good track record at Ubisoft behind some big projects. So
Apart from
I'm
Watch
looking
Dogs
forward to
Legion.
all of them. Besides that, yes, that
Yeah.
is a
Before that, he had
that's
a
a
pretty
big
much
asterisk.
untainted name.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
asterisk on his resume right there. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
That game still was a travesty, especially at launch. Everybody gave crap to Cyberpunk and some other games with how bad they launched. Watch Dogs Legions was one of the worst games at launch that I've played. As big AAA games, and nobody really talked about it at the time. It kind of fell under the radar with the issues that it was having. But yeah, that one was really rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also had the EA, or not the EA, sorry, the Marvel Disney, the Disney Marvel, dare I
Yeah,
say,
that was
showcase, which was also
was
maybe
weird.
on the bad end of the spectrum. Big, it's weird because Marvel, well, Disney have a lot of cool games in development, but obviously they can't show any of those games
Yeah.
because those games are under kind of bigger publishers. So that we're never going to, because I think some people were expecting the likes of Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, Indiana Jones to show up at this show, which was never going to happen. And yeah, there was a very big mobile focus. But it was just a weird show because it was only this week, I think, that we had the Iron Man game announcement, wasn't it? And
Yeah, that's
they
the
had
EA. Yeah.
and they had a Marvel showcase just a week ago, and they didn't mention, unless the ink literally just dried on the contract when they announced that. Because I know they said it was only in development, but yeah, it was just a weird. I actually don't know why they did that show. I think they easily could have just not had that show at all.
This was their first one that they tried to do, their first time trying to do a big gaming show with Disney, and I feel like it was a little bit of a wasted opportunity because they have opportunity to really showcase some really cool stuff, and maybe they couldn't because of all those deals they have with other people. But what they did show, they didn't really show very well. They just like only had like again like 5 second, 10-second snippets, right? And mainly just going from thing to thing to thing, without really any big focus on any of them. And that kind of was a detriment to a lot of the stuff they showed, as well as the big reveal they had, which I was super excited for. The Amy Hennig, Black Panther, Captain America game that they were going to
Yeah.
showcase. They didn't really explain what it is very well, and they did have a sit down afterwards, but they could have had a more of an explanation during this announcement that would have led to more excitement instead of just this vague teaser trailer that doesn't give you any information really, right? So you have to really dig out there now for the info. That's going to be a pretty big game, I believe, once it drops. And I'm curious what platforms it's all going to be for. I think it may be for everything they do announce that because one of the things on their website says it's for new cloud services and kind of all those kind of things as well. So I'm really curious about that game, how it's going to be because it's a new studio as well, right? But they seem like they're really going for big production value based on the language that they're using on their website. So that was something I just
Yeah.
the trailer didn't wow me, right? It was so like I don't know. It was a weird trailer. It didn't excite me as much as it should have.
Yeah, I think Amy Hennig came out afterwards, and as you say, she did that interview, and she
Yeah.
said that the game would be in line with the previous games.
Yes.
So it's an action adventure narrative game, which is music to my ears every day of the week. You know, it's basically Uncharted Marvel. You know, that's effectively what she was saying. So yeah, I thought it was a weird trailer, really weird, really short. But the type of game and who's leading it really excites me. And I think she did say as well that it's not multiplayer. So even though there's 4 characters, you just play as them at different times in the story, different missions. Again, music to my ears. So I think that was all really cool. But yeah, it'd be nice to actually see it. It does seem like it's going to be a big budget. They've hired a lot of AAA devs. And it seems like it's a pretty big project for Marvel.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to be
awesome
a
settings as well.
big deal when it happens. It's just because maybe it was because of how bad the show was overall, and it kind of fell flat with the teaser trailer. Like if they showcase that at like a E3 or something, show or like a big show with one of these publishers, on their big stage, I think like it would have shown better. But maybe being a part of such a crappy little show, it's just kind of got overlooked.
Yeah. Amy Henning, is it Henning or Hennig?
Hennig.
Luke Hennig.
Hennig.
She's not Haven. Haven's Jade Raymond, isn't it? And then she's
Skydance New Media.
That's right.
Yeah.
For some reason, I always get them mixed up. I don't know why. I probably should.
Jade Raymond was Assassin's Creed, and Amy Hennig was Uncharted.
Yeah. That's right. Which was one that was working on this? Yeah, was Amy Hennig the Star Wars, was it 1313 game she was working on that got canned?
No, she was doing the Star Wars Ragtag game with EA.
Yes,
and Visceral.
She's doing a Star Wars game too now with Skydance.
Yeah, she is also doing a Star Wars.
Oh
game
wow,
now,
okay.
Yeah,
She's busy then. She's busy for it.
Yes,
for a new studio taking on 2 projects that size.
That's going to be their MO. They're going to be doing big AAA action adventure style games based on big IPs and licenses, and they're going to be trying to. They also have interesting things on their website about trying to bring them to more players using new technologies and with multiple inputs and stuff like that. So it seems like they want to have this like Uncharted type experience, right? This big cinematic action adventure games, kind of bridging the gap, they say, between movies and gaming, but also figure out how to bring it to a bigger audience. I think you're going to potentially see like touch controls on cloud, like mobile devices and stuff like that in some of these games, because there's a lot of information on the website about what their vision is as a company, and also with the projects when they were first revealed that they were working on a Marvel project, when they're working on a Star Wars project. They kind of gave a lot of insight into their overall vision. So what I expect is a AAA game that's going to be accessible across multiple platforms and focusing on accessibility via the cloud as well. That's what I would personally think is going to happen here.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that turns out. It is interesting because I guess at the very least it shows the direction that Disney are going with their properties going forward. They're kind of basically letting anyone and everyone take a stab at it. Long gone are the days where they're signing long deals with the likes of EA for a particular franchise. Everyone's getting involved. Obviously, we spoke about Ubisoft before. They've got the Star Wars project that's on the Division Snowdrop engine, I believe, that they're working on as well, that we still haven't seen anything about. I don't think so.
Yeah, Splinter Cell and Avatar are both on.
Oh man, honestly, Splinter Cell, that's the one thing. That's the only thing from Ubisoft that I'm actually currently interested in.
They just talked to. There was some people were trying to make a big stir about the hiring listing that came out recently about bringing the game to a new audience and stuff, trying to stir up some controversy with that. But there's the only information we really have is what their vision is of the game, and which is on the Ubisoft website. But it seems like they're trying to do the right thing by Splinter Cell, and I really hope it's successful. Man. I can't wait.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I did see that they were talking about the kind of the setting and stuff. The one thing I hope is, although it's a remake of the first game, I really hope that they end up adding a multiplayer component to that game. And it's and it's Ubisoft, so they're going to want that in there anyway. But yeah, Spies versus Mercs is still one of my favorite multiplayer experiences I've ever had in Pandora, Tomorrow, and Chaos Theory. So I really hope that they bring that back.
The reason we haven't gotten a Splinter Cell game?
Why is that?
Because they haven't been able to figure out a way to monetize it.
Yeah, I mean that's the sad reality of it. If you look at their at their games, that's kind of the direction that they're going in, unfortunately, aren't they? So
yeah, that's from rumblings I've heard from people that have actually been behind the scenes as well, like with the meetings and stuff like that. It's like if they can't figure out a way to monetize things, it's how a lot of the meetings go there, then they basically just put it on the shelf. And this is what's interesting about this one is that maybe they're abandoning that philosophy, because a lot of the things that they've said is focused on a linear experience, and this is not going to be open world and all those kind of things. But I even had a video because I was like, Splinter Cell needs to come back. So I even made a video. I was like, Ubisoft, if you want to know how to monetize Splinter Cell, I even pitched it. I was like, hey, bring back Spies versus Mercs. Let us get battle passes for Mask and stuff like that. Keep it cosmetics. I don't care. But you got to bring back Spies versus Mercs in a big way. And that'll be your avenue to monetize it if you so choose.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they need to do. They could, I don't know. There's so many things they could do with that franchise. It's literally the only thing that Ubisoft work on that I get excited about. And we've been starved of Splinter Cell content for so long, and it does seem like, unfortunately, it's still many moons away. Unfortunately, so. But hopefully we see something from that soon. So, I think in terms of other showcases, we obviously had TGS. That happened recently as well. Xbox had a bit of a presence there. Even the likes of Konami showed up. Sega showed up with a lot of Like a Dragon stuff. Was there anything in particular from TGS that stood out to you guys that you just wanted to chat about?
Luke? Yeah, not really. I don't think. I think maybe the RGG show was pretty good.
Yes,
I
think that was the standout.
Yeah, that was pretty good because I mean, obviously they'd already shown Ishin before that showcase, but they had a big kind of interesting conversation about it on stage, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, Like a Dragon 8 being announced as well, and then the ridiculously titled prequel. Effectively, I think it's between Yakuza 7 and 8 or 6 and 7?
6 and 7. I think it kind of fills the gap for Kiryu.
Yeah, so that I can't even remember what it was called. The man who
the man who lost his name or something.
That's
something like that. Yeah,
the man who lost his name. But their showcase was quite short but full of information and had great announcements. And that was like the best show of that event, basically. And I watched that live as well, so that was cool. The Xbox show was not great, but it was trying to do a very specific thing. So I don't want to be too harsh on it because it was never intended to have big announcements or new trailers or reveal new games. It was purely to kind of show that more Japanese devs and publishers are bringing their games to Xbox, right? So in that context, I think it was a good show. I just don't think it's a particularly interesting show if you don't really care about that. And they had some good Game Pass stuff there. So Ni no Kuni, for example, I think that was really cool.
And Deathloop finally showing up.
Deathloop finally showing up. Odyssey launching into Game Pass as well. Like some cool stuff.
I think again it comes down to expectations, though, doesn't it, Luke? Because like no one expected anything massive to appear in that show. So then when you get games like Ni no Kuni or Danganronpa and things like that, it's like a pleasant surprise, especially when they go into the Game Pass. That same day. So I thought it was a good show in context of what it was, not necessarily it being sort of a game where they're showing off, Square Enix's next game or something like that,
Yeah, exactly. So that was fine. And I think the best thing to come out of TGS actually wasn't a showcase. And I think it was actually just before TGS, but it was the Wolong demo that launched.
Yeah.
Which was really cool, and I enjoyed a lot. So yeah, that was cool.
Another Team Ninja game. Those guys are busy.
Yeah, they're doing well. Yeah, it's pretty busy at the moment. Not too much to say about TGS apart from that stuff, really. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah, I think just on the RGG, I think as you say that was a standout. I think obviously we had the Ishin announcement from the state of play. We then had the man who lost his name. I don't even know if that's right, to be honest. Hopefully someone listening can correct us if it isn't. We had that announcement, which it's interesting because Yakuza games are ones that I've always wanted to get into, but I've never really vibed with the combat in particular, which is such a shame because I really, really liked Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7 because I really enjoyed the turn-based combat in that game. But every time I see this, I just really want to jump in. But now, if I wanted to, I've got like 6 games to catch up on. And again, I don't really vibe with the combat. But seeing, I guess one of the more interesting things is they've effectively renamed the franchise in the West from Yakuza to Like a Dragon, which is, from what I remember reading, that is the actual translation of the game from Japanese. Like a Dragon is kind of the correct translation from the Japanese title. So it was really, really good to see Like a Dragon 8. We saw Emo Kiryu being showcased alongside obviously Ichiban, who's I guess the main protagonist in that game. But there's a lot of Like a Dragon content coming out. We've got 2 games next year in Ishin and the man who lost his name, and then 2024 they said we've got Like a Dragon 8, which I'm unbelievably excited for. Like a Dragon Yakuza 7, I really, really enjoyed that game. It was so much fun, and obviously the combat was more to my liking, I think. So yeah, really, really excited for that. But yeah, on the Xbox show, like I say, I thought it was a decent show, and we finally got Deathloop, which I have been playing this past week actually, which I've been enjoying quite a lot. Did you end up playing that on PlayStation, Luke, out of interest, Deathloop?
No, I played that on PC when it launched.
Because it did come out on PC as well as PlayStation when it launched.
Yeah, it launched at the same time. So I played a bit. I couldn't get into it. I did download it on PlayStation the other day, actually, because it's also available on Extra, PS Plus Extra and Premium.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd give it a bash because I remember someone saying that the DualSense stuff was really cool on it. So I was like, well, try it. And I did play a bit of it. I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than when I played it on PC. I've no idea what that is. Just a different headspace, I suppose. But yeah, I think some people will really love it, and I get why people love it, and then other people will not like the game at all, and that's kind of the reaction I've seen online. Yeah. Some people are like, "Oh, this is amazing! I really love it," and then other people are like, "This is just not good for me." And I don't know where I need to give it a bit more time, but I don't know where I stand on it because it's not like other Arcane games in a lot of ways. In other ways, it is. But it maybe takes away some of the things that people really love about some Arcane games and replaces it with things that people don't. So I don't know what your thoughts on it are at the minute, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a couple of hours in. I'm really enjoying what I've played. It feels, I guess, like an arcane game. I
Yeah.
guess in a lot of respects, but it's obviously just, I guess, the everything else around the edges that's maybe a little different. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm probably only a couple of hours in, but it's I'm enjoying just everything that I played on it so far, actually. So I'm pleased that I was finally able to get that on Xbox, because obviously at one point I was like, is it actually going to come, or is maybe the
Yeah.
exclusivity period maybe a little longer? So Mav, how about yourself? Have you been playing Deathloop?
Yeah, I actually played it originally on PlayStation when it came out. I didn't finish it. I kind of took a step back because I don't finish games and play too many different games constantly all the time. But I was excited to give it a go when it was going to hit Game Pass, and I think it was a cool announcement to see there as well. Even though it kind of got spoiled from Microsoft themselves on their own dashboard,
Yeah.
it was cool to see that it's finally making its way to the first party device that it, from the studio now. So it's going to be a game that I think a lot of people are going to think back and be like, oh wow, that was really cool. And a lot of people kind of skipped it originally for one reason or another. But it's good. It's a good filler right now because with the lack of first party releases this year on Xbox, this kind of fills in
Yeah.
like, hey, this is something cool. It's in Game Pass. It's a big game. It reviewed really well. It's got a lot of gameplay. It's replayable. And for me, like this is my actual favorite arcane game I've played so far because the actual gun mechanics and combat, I feel a lot faster, more fluid than a lot of the other arcane games that I've played in the past. So I haven't finished it yet, as I've been hooked on NBA 2K23 and the Call of Duty beta now, and all these different things. So, but it's the one that I'm going to keep going back to because it's one of those games you can kind of like go in and spend some time to kind of go through a level and then kind of hop back out. But one of my most favorite thing about that game is the exploration of it. It's not even necessarily the combat or the loop of it. It's actually exploring and solving puzzles and finding things,
Yeah.
right? Which is something that's kind of overlooked when people talk about Deathloop for sure. But besides that, man, Tokyo Game Show, dude, was just overall amazing. Like, I mean, the state of play kinda got lumped in there, right? Because it was right before, and then you had, a lot of other kind of announcements mixed in with Tokyo Game Show. You had the Capcom show, you had the other
Yeah.
things, and overall, like, Tokyo Game Show this year had a lot more than I'm used to seeing. Usually there's like a couple things here and there, and that's kind of it. But this year there's a lot of stuff, man. Like, but the Xbox show, we got you had some Game Pass shadow drops, with like Nino Cooney and I think it was the other one called like Figu or something like that. There's another game uh that dropped in there right away as well. Plus you had other announcements that are franchises that have been skipping Xbox coming back to the platform, like Blaze Blue
Yeah.
and Guilty Gear and stuff like that. And it's like Arc System Works, and it seems like they're on board now with Xbox. And it kind of reminds me of how it started with Yakuza, right? You start bringing those games to the platform and get people's interest, and maybe you're going to see those new games come as well. It's got to start somewhere, right? So I was really happy to see a lot of those games get announced that they're coming to Xbox. Square's got to get on board, right? Still,
Yeah.
they keep skipping randomly. Weird, like Octopath Traveler 2, we mentioned earlier, for some reason, is not coming to Xbox day one. I don't know if it's PlayStation or Nintendo or if whoever has anything to do with that. But the last one took about a year, I think, to come to Xbox. This one maybe will be the same.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's just Game Pass. Not necessarily Game Pass itself, but I think what Square holding out for, they're just holding out for that
the Game Pass
big
deal.
bucket cash. Yeah, that'll come with the Game Pass deal. I think is probably what's happened there. It's truly bizarre because even the first
Yeah.
one still hasn't been announced for the original PlayStation.
Yeah,
Even though the second's coming.
they launched Geofield Chronicle on there, which is a great game, by the way. But like, it's not no marketing, and it's one of the more niche games that they're bringing out. It is kind of strange that they skip these big titles yeah, on Xbox platform, but it's good to see other ones are bringing it out. But really, one thing that also the Wolong Dynasty um,
Yeah,
was demo was dropped at this time as well, which is fantastic. But one of the main star of the show for me at this entire Tokyo Game Show was actually the Capcom show.
I didn't actually see anything
So
of that.
the first 30 minutes is all Monster Hunter stuff. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah, it's often why I skip.
Right, but but then we got Exoprimal, a deeper look into that, which that game is looking more and more interesting and more fun for me. The more
that's the dinosaur one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like multiplayer PvE PvP. With like you have like guardian suits, kind of. I don't really know how to describe it, but you're wearing like exosuits and really cool armor and stuff. And the game looks really fun. The more I see it, it looks really cool. But not only Exoprimal, but they had a big showcase at the end of the Capcom show about Street Fighter 6. And Street Fighter 6 looks freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome to see that full blowout, because I was kind of down on what I saw with the original trailer, with kind of have the My Park mode almost for like NBA 2K, like in Street Fighter, where you walk around and pick up fights. But when they started showcasing that mode here, it really stood out. I was like, wow, this is awesome. You make your own character, deep customization options. You can walk around, pick fights with different people. You get training from some of the famous Street Fighter characters, and then you have your traditional modes as well in the game. It looks fantastic. And overall, if you combine Tekken 8 with Street Fighter 6, it looks like the fighting genre is making a huge comeback. And that has me super excited.
Yeah, because it's been a long time. So obviously since Tekken 7 and Street Fighter 5, those games are a little old now.
And both of them didn't really live up to the potential of the franchises, in my opinion. Like Street Fighter 5 was exclusive on PlayStation. Then you also had the Tekken wasn't really hitting on a lot of levels like they did in the past, with especially with some of the graphics and stuff in the game as well. So I think that what we saw Tekken 8 at the State of Play, and then what we saw here from Street Fighter 6, man, these publishers are starting to put more money behind these franchises again to prop them back up to prominence. And I hope that continues, man, because last generation, another realm carried it for fighting games, really. You know, the Mortal Kombat and Injustice last gen was pretty much the big games. You had even Bandai Namco released some fighting games, but they didn't really get a lot of budget, a lot of marketing behind them as well. Soul Calibur 6 was a disappointment for me as a Soul Calibur fan. So I'm hoping that this generation we see the return of some of these genres to get like treated as they should, and not just like little niche genres.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, in particular for Street Fighter, is to return to being multi-platform. I think,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, those games really need to be multi-platform, and preferably with crossplay, just to ensure a nice wide variety of players of different skill levels. I picked up Street Fighter 5 on Steam through a humble bundle, and yeah, if you're playing that game now as someone who's not good at fighting games and new to that game, it really wasn't a pleasant experience. I can say that much. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the fighting games coming back. And as you say, Mav, the Arc System Work games coming to Xbox is obviously cool. I am still hesitant though to kind of get too excited because of Square Enix. So we saw Octopath Traveler coming to Game Pass, and you think, okay, this is good, but then for whatever reason the next one isn't. And I guess that's my concern with maybe the future games of these franchises, is will they come to Xbox day one, or will they hold out until they get a nice little juicy Game Pass check from
I just
Xbox,
hope that they follows more the line of Yakuza games and not pass with Final Fantasy, or Square Enix game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that kind of rounds up the game shows. Then we can probably got time for maybe touch on one other topic before we wrap up the show for today. Do you guys have any preferences to where we go last? No, Luke. Did you want to do your infamous PCMR segment? The return of the PCMR segment. It debuted a few months back. No. It hasn't made a return just yet, but it was a big week, I think, in that world.
Yes, it was new NVIDIA GPUs being announced, specifically the RTX 4090 and 4080. So these are based on the new third generation RTX architecture, which is called Lovelace. So the first cards to adopt that architecture, essentially. And they are pretty incredible cards at pretty incredible prices.
I was just about to say incredibly expensive is probably...
Yes, yes. When I say incredible prices, I mean highly priced, not, look at this, it's a bargain. Yes, so I think people, like, I was expecting them to up their prices. I didn't expect them to up their prices as much as they did, particularly on the 4090, which is, I think, $1,599. So $1,600 essentially. And then the 4080, I can't actually remember, but I think it starts at $899.
Yeah, I think it was like 900 and then 1250 or 1270.
Yes, I think you're right.
Like that.
Yes, that's correct. And we've not had, obviously NVIDIA talk about performance gains gen on gen, and they give some of their own benchmarks for that, but they are very specific benchmarks usually, and we always need to wait for other publications to actually get their hands on the cards and talk about them in a real world setting. But certainly for the at least for the 4090, some claims that are made are really quite amazing, and some of it seems to be borne out in kind of hints that some publications have the ways in some publications have talked about them. So Digital Foundry, for example, already have a 4090, and they're going to do some big videos soon. But they showed off a few bits of Cyberpunk running on the 4090, maxed out at the Psycho ray tracing settings, which, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the current maximum ray tracing setting in Cyberpunk. They are actually introducing a new setting to coincide with the launch of these cards called Overdrive, which essentially has the complete world ray traced, including lighting, global illumination, etc. But at least on the max setting Cyberpunk PC Psycho settings, I think Digital Foundry said with DLS 3.0 at 4K, they were getting 4K 120 FPS, which is absolutely bonkers performance. Anybody who's played that game on PC and tried to up the ray tracing setting to Psycho knows that, if you're getting 60, you're doing pretty well. So to have that kind of performance, I think Digital Foundry also showed off, I think Spider-Man in their little sizzle reel. That was running on PC. That was running at 8K, 60 FPS, and I think max settings again on a 4090. So it's clearly an incredible card. Just to put it into perspective, I guess, because everybody loves teraflops, that's like the buzzword. But if you look at the shader teraflops, which are the essentially rasterized performance teraflop count, ignoring all the ray tracing stuff, I think the 4090 is 84 teraflops. So it's they don't really mean much nowadays, those numbers, but it kind of shows you what kind of level of performance you're dealing with.
What was the Xbox by comparison, Luke, again?
The Xbox Series X is 12.
12, yeah, because the was the One X 6, and that was like, wow, that blew people's minds at the time that console did 6, yeah. Now those are different architectures. I mean, completely different chip manufacturers, but it gives you a very rough estimate of raw computational power, I suppose. So NVIDIA announced that DLSS 3.0, which is a massive performance gain
as well for their new cards. That is exclusive to their new cards, so you can't use that on any of the 30 series. The justification being there's extra hardware acceleration that goes into that on the new cards, which obviously does not exist on the old ones. But yeah, the prices, I think, above all else, the prices of these cards are the things that people come out with the strongest memory of, above and beyond the performance, because it's expensive, right? I mean, the 4090 is very expensive. The 4080 series they're not terrible, but they're still not really well priced, particularly when the base model of the 4080, which is the $900 version, is actually not really a 4080. It's kind of a trimmed down version. It's more like a 4070 that they're masquerading as 4080, so which I think is really cheeky. But yeah, it was an interesting week just for that, and it will be interesting to see the benchmarks when they come out and we see kind of the uptick in performance. But I mean, yeah, they showed some other stuff off. I think they showed Flight Sim, for example, on DLSS getting over 120 frames a second with ray tracing as well. So it clearly a amazing performing card, but I think the price is a lot, right? Yeah. So
no doubt they will announce like 4060s and 4070s at some point in the future, but I think the word on the street, dare I say, is obviously they've still got a lot of 30 series hardware out there that they want to get rid of essentially before they bring out the cheaper models of the 40 series cards. So, Mav, do you game on PC much? Is the PC hardware market something that interests you an awful lot?
I want to, but my PC currently doesn't play games as well as my console does. So and to upgrade it, I would have to upgrade everything. So at this point, I would be in the market for a high-end PC and building it up. I've never built PCs. I don't understand a lot of the tech, but I do like the potential of playing things at crazy frame rates and and all that kind of stuff with all the bells and whistles. I don't understand enough of the tech behind it and stuff to really get excited for this stuff. In the future, I would like to get a better PC, obviously for everything that we do on our channel and stuff also, but just to be able to play some of these games at their most intense details and stuff like that as well. But I when I see the price, I didn't like some of the takes out there that I saw. Like people were like, "Oh, if you can't afford it, oh well." You know what I mean? It's like it's not for poor people and all these kind of things. I get it. Yes, it is a premium device, right? It is a premium new thing and stuff. You know what I mean? But it's crazy how expensive these things are getting, just in general. But I did anticipate that new cards are going to be pricey for sure. But I think there's a lot of people that were surprised at how much they were, and maybe aren't going to be able to get it right away when they thought they were going to be able to. So that's a little bit of a shame. But besides that, no real takes on it.
And probably the thing to notice, obviously, the pricing they've announced is the MSRP of the cards, and if the past few years has shown you much, is maybe that doesn't mean an awful lot in the real market. I know the prices of cards have come down quite significantly because of the crypto crash essentially created quite a big second-hand market, I think, there. But yeah, it is one of those things where I've got like a laptop that's got a 3060 in it, but this entire laptop cost me about like half the price of one of these cards that they've just announced, which is crazy. I guess on the flip side, Luke, I guess AMD do have an event in November. I think November 3rd they're going to announce the RDNA 3 stuff, so it'll be interesting because I think Nvidia have basically had that market to themselves for a few years now, haven't they? So it'll be interesting if hopefully AMD and dare I say maybe even Intel with Arc maybe give them a little bit of a kick up the arse that drives some competition in that space.
Yeah, I think the problem with, I mean, unfortunately, I think Intel scrapped some of their ARC stuff, so they're only bringing out the mid-range cards.
Yeah.
So, and the problem with AMD is that they again, they don't really compete very well with Nvidia on the high end, which is where the 4080 and the 4090 sit. So, you know, they have some really cool stuff, and particularly on, like, if you're going for mid to high, like AMD is a really great option. But if you really want kind of class leading performance, AMD haven't historically offered it, at least not the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
There's still time. Obviously, RDNA 3, you know, it could be a time to introduce that. But again, like, there's just things that it's a real shame because, you know, it's not just standard performance high end that NVIDIA are offering. It's, you know, the ray tracing performance, which AMD are nowhere near offering the same kind of performance level. Obviously, they don't. AMD have FSR, but it's a software driven solution that it's, again, improved, but it's nowhere near as good as DLSS, which is pretty much the best in the industry. So I'd be really interested to watch it, to see what they do, but I'm only interested in what they're doing at the higher end, because I think, you know, everybody already knows that AMD do good alternatives. If you're looking for that mid to high end card and you want kind of best bang for your buck, they already do that really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need some more competition from AMD, kind of 4090 level stuff. But they just seem really far away from being able to do it, which is what you kind of then just look at NVIDIA through gritted teeth and go, well, you know, I guess if I want that kind of ultimate experience, I have to, it's either a 4090 or a 4080 or nothing at the minute, you know? So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And yeah, one annoying point as well, which you, I guess, said about the prices for the 40 series that they'd announced, is that I think they will sell at MSRP, but the issue is that the prices they revealed are only for the Founder Edition cards, which are NVIDIA's own manufactured cards in certain markets. Any third-party provider, manufacturer, MSI, SOTAC, PNY, any of these, basically the vast majority of the manufacturers people actually buy their cards from, they're going to charge more, because they need to charge more to make a profit, right, on these cards. So, for example, in the UK, the cheapest 4090 I've seen listed is about £1,800. A non-Founder Edition one. So you're going to pay at least that for a standard third-party 4090, which is, you know, disappointing to say the least, because that's a lot of money for a graphics card, right? You could build a whole rig for that amount.
Christ.
So yeah, it's frustrating, but whether that, I don't know if it'll stop me getting one though, because I just can't. I need to see the benchmarks. I need to see like the actual performance gains on stuff, and then I will think about that. I'm building a new PC, so I will think about it. But it's it's weird. It's a weird time for NVIDIA because they're doing so many good things, so many bad things.
I've seen a lot of people saying they're switching to AMD over some of the NVIDIA stuff lately.
And I think that's a fair reaction. I think some people just can't stomach the price of this stuff anymore, which I think is entirely justified. You know,
was there some other thing that just happened recently with one of the
it was
manufacturers or something that kind of is going to stop working?
EVGA.
That was pretty wild, that story, actually.
It's a really massive announcement, because they are pretty much, along with probably one or two others, like the main manufacturer of NVIDIA architecture GPUs. Easily one of the most popular, like top two, and they were just like, nope, we're not doing it because we can't make any money out of it anymore, because effectively NVIDIA, you know, are charging too much to use the patent for the architecture and all of that stuff, and they're having to increase the amounts that they're actually selling these cards for, which in turn means that less people buy them because obviously they're too expensive. So people don't blame them really.
Yeah.
It was shocking news, but not entirely surprising. So I think Nvidia have to do something in the future, but I don't think they're going to change the price of these cards. I think they want them to be what they are, which is fine, but you have to really deliver something pretty spectacular in that case, I think. So
yeah, and it goes back to, if you do things like if you look at like Steam hardware survey results, majority of people are still on 10 series cards,
1060s.
So it shows that this high end is obviously a small percentage of
market,
which is why maybe AMD potentially have like a real opportunity there. So it'll be interesting. It's something that kind of I like to watch from the sidelines. Is it's a bit out of my price range anyway, so I just watch it purely from like a tech curiosity perspective. But interestingly, look, I don't know if you saw the Digital Foundry. I think Digital Foundry did something, but there's a lot of I guess positive stuff coming out about the XeSS solution that Intel have got from. I guess their competitor DLSS. So again, I guess when it comes down to things like that, whether it be pricing or features, that competition is obviously good. And then, you translate that any market, basically. Competition's good. Funny that, isn't it? So, it'll be interesting how that turns out. So, we do have a couple of minutes left, guys. So I don't know if you wanted to chat at all about GTA 6, which I guess was kind of the big news of the past week or so. I mean, personally, there wasn't really much there that interested me. I guess the leak itself was obviously huge. Seeing a game of that size be leaked in the way that it was, this wasn't Jeff Grubb or Jez Corden sort of writing an article. This was theft, effectively. But and GTA is not really a franchise I'm particularly interested in, to be perfectly honest. But did you guys, either of you guys, want to talk at all about GTA 6 and that whole hoo-ha?
Well, yeah, I mean, personally, I can't believe that we are, 3-4 years away from the game releasing, and it looks as bad visually as it does. Because, as we know, graphics are the first thing that are finished.
I mean, that's one thing I've learned this past few weeks, mate. Is that very thing that graphics are done first.
I've even seen people commenting on how bad the gameplay looks.
I mean, honestly, if I can be perfectly honest, like I kind of agree. I think it looked like GTA 5, and I didn't like how GTA 5 played, so I don't have any expectations of how GTA 6 will play. But it will be a case of, do you like that gameplay? It looked, if someone had said, what does GTA 6 look like right now? Like, that's exact, and asked me to draw it somehow, and I could draw it if I had any sort of artistic talent at all. It's kind of how I'd expect it to look. It looks like a prettier version of GTA 5. Which is why I'm not particularly excited about it. But look, just on that point, I did really like the support that came out for Rockstar from other developers who were shown early versions of their game to kind of get at that point. That's like kind of like a really cool peek behind the curtain that I really think we don't get, and I would like to see more of. I've got Sea of Thieves on here at the moment, and Rare showed some more Sea of Thieves sort of footage, and when the characters just look like beans, and Cult of the Lamb developer showed off some early footage, Cult of the Lamb, which was cool, and there was a Horizon one which looked really good. It was really good. Yeah. That was the best thing to come out of the whole thing for me personally, outside of the actual leak.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's shit for Rockstar. It looks like it hasn't actually impacted their dev, their release time. They said as much in their statement, which is good. It did lead to weird reactions. I mean, I actually thought in some places visually it looked amazing for the time, like where it is now in development. And the thing is that, like, me and you are the same, Scott, on this. Like, we didn't enjoy Red Dead 2 at all. Like, in many ways, like, we don't like Rockstar gameplay and the kind of old fashioned level design and stuff like that. But the one thing we both agree on is that it's still one of the best looking games ever made.
Yeah.
Like their engine is second to none. Like if there was ever a thing to not worry about with the next GTA, it's how impressive it will be graphically, because it will be amazing. Now, whether it will do things that will, make us enjoy those games more, I don't know, because I don't know what Rockstar have planned for that. But it's just a weird hill to die on. I think people complaining about visuals, not understanding how game dev works at all. So yeah, it's crap for them, but it looks like it hasn't really affected them that much. And obviously, it seems like the kid that did this has now been arrested. So no more from him really. So yeah. What a pretty wild stuff, I think.
Mav, where do you sit on the whole GTA thing? Are you a fan of Red Dead, fan of GTA 5?
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is my game of the generation last gen. Like, it's one of the most amazing stories I've ever played in a game. I loved Red Dead Redemption 1 as well. GTA 4 is personally my favorite GTA. GTA 5 is great. My wife plays it every day. Right, she still plays GTA Online. It's an amazing game, like absolutely amazing. So I am really hyped for GTA 6. As far as the gameplay stuff, like one thing I'll say is, like, even if a game looks similar, they can have completely different feel, right? So
yeah, that's fine.
So when you see like a game trailer, like, or gameplay shown, or like, for example, the Call of Duty beta, right? Also, I've been watching streams, been watching gameplay. Then when you pick up that controller and pick it up and you get to feel it for the first time, it's like, oh, this feels different, but it still looks like Call of Duty, right? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different things that could be nuanced within there that they could be changing. Overall, of course, it's going to be a big sandbox, open world Grand Theft Auto game, third person, and that's what I think I would expect. There's nothing surprising whatsoever. I did find it interesting that we saw like a sneak peek behind the characters and the voices and the voice acting, which seems like it's pretty far along as well. So that was pretty impressive and promising to see. People commenting on the graphics of something like this just have no clue. And it's weird that they just picked this apart because it's such a big news. But then, like, EA has been doing something pretty cool lately, where they've been showcasing games early in development, like Dead Space and Skate, right? And
Yeah.
having these showings of like, hey, this is what the game looks like right now, and the devs are talking about it and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think more of that is what's going to be what it would take to change the image of something, like, oh, this looks bad, and it's not finished. The same thing with betas or early gameplay glimpses when we get insider tests or whatever. Sometimes those things kind of go viral about how trash a game is when it's not finished yet, right? Or how bad a game looks when it's not finished. And this, I mean, did anybody honestly think people were going to look like mannequins, in the game? I mean, they look like mannequins from a mall. Like they don't even have skin. It just doesn't make sense how people would be commenting on graphics on a game where the characters don't even have skin on them yet, right? So I just didn't understand a lot of the feedback with that. However, I think that the promise of the game seems pretty impressive. I'm really hoping that Rockstar still keeps that edge that they've always had. My main concerns with GTA would not be anything related to anything we saw with this leak. It would be about the writing and with the Hauser brother that was mainly in charge of that left. How is that going to impact the direction of this game and how it's fully fleshed out? And I'm also curious what they're going to be doing with GTA Online, with all the investments and everything people been making with that game for a decade now. What are they going to do with that audience? And kind of, are they going to abandon everything, or are they going to have them carry forward with all of that stuff? There's a lot of questions to ask, but nothing about graphics for me. Nothing about gameplay. The source code stuff sucks more than anything, right? That was actually held ransom and potentially was put on the market to be sold. I'm glad the kid got caught, and I want them to make an example out of him, right? Like, enough of giving these guys jobs because they're good at attacking and know how to defend, as well. You can find the loopholes and stuff. Make an example out of one of these guys, and you might deter some other people from trying it.
It
That's all.
is,
That's all I
yeah,
got.
it is difficult on that final point because I get what you mean, but at the same time, I do kind of think, oh well, this is just a 17-year-old kid, but
Yeah,
at
but
that
he's
age,
already
you know what you're doing and stuff. So
same
I
kid that's
do
already
get it.
profited on millions from other ransomware
Yeah,
supposedly, and stealing customer information and releasing it to the public. He knows that's wrong. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I know what you mean.
If
Yeah,
you're going and doing that and you're exposing the security and privacy of millions of people, and also ruining things for millions of people, you deserve to be punished. I mean, he knew he was committing a huge crime, and at that age, yeah, you make mistakes, right? You make dumb mistakes, but uh, you know what? Like when it comes at the expense of millions, that's a bad mistake to make,
yeah. I
right?
think a point on this as well is I don't believe it was like actual hacking. Well, I guess social engineering is a form of hacking, but like it's not like he whipped up some sort of code that allowed him to access it. It was just kind of social engineering from what I'm aware through Slack to get access to it. So
Yeah, but he's been doing
there's
it
a
to multiple companies too.
yeah
It's
Uber, I
not
think.
just Uber. There's others too, several. Some of the stuff's coming out about some of the stuff he's gotten. He's been arrested before, and questioned about other companies as well, and he'd been profited millions on. So, and it's like his guy does it a lot, and he's out there trying to hack big corporations and get their data out and public information, customer information, and stuff like that as well. So,
Yeah,
this is yeah, he deserves every bit of punishment he's going to get. Around here, it's I think it's 17. You can be tried as an adult. I don't know if that's the rules in where he lives, but it's a pretty serious crime.
yeah.
It's
I'm not
not
too
like
sure
he
what it's like, what it is in the UK, to be honest. I imagine maybe others. I think it might be 18 that you have to be. I'm honestly not
yeah.
too
And here it's
sure.
depending on the state you live in and
Yeah,
everything, right? So, yeah, in Texas, you can be treated as an adult at 17. So, I don't know what the rules are there, but I just hope that it's an example because it affects people in multiple countries too, not just where he's at. So, Rockstar has multiple studios across multiple countries as well. So it impacts people and the developers and the publishers and the bottom line. And um, the most important thing for me is what the potential impact on the consumers, right, and the players, and with him potentially having access to consumer data or consumer information, in which leaked information has come out that on some of the other things he's been going after has some of that stuff in it. It doesn't show good intentions on my part. It's not like he's trying to go after, a bad company that's doing bad things and, trying to make an example out of them and expose them for what they are, whatever. This is a pure for profit attack, trying to steal information to sell it.
yeah. I think that's fair, and I think just going back to maybe the reaction. I think if anything, I think a lot of people talk about how secretive the games industry are, but then you look at the reaction to this early prototype footage of Grand Theft Auto, and you see the negative reaction, and then you think, well, that's exactly why we don't hear about games until they're close to release. So this is exactly why they announce games with the CG trailer.
And if that was it, hacking and exposing the early development stuff, like, oh, that's not it. I don't care, like whatever, right? But the source code stuff, that's different,
Yeah,
right?
because a lot of people called it leaking. It was theft,
This was a theft of
not
intellectual
leaking.
property, a
Yeah,
theft of data, a theft of a lot of assets that a company needs, and potentially releasing proprietary technology to other companies by selling it on the black market. That's what the intention is here, right?
yeah,
So imagine you go and you rip off a huge electronics store and steal millions of dollars worth of equipment, and then you try and resell it. I mean, this is the equivalent of that, except it's just in the form of information, right?
yeah,
Imagine they go breaking into Samsung and stealing their proprietary chips or whatever, and releasing them, start selling them on the black market to other TV companies so they can manufacture their own or whatever. You know what I mean? It's high level theft, man. And I don't care what age you are. If you're 17 years old, that's enough to know better. You know?
Yeah. The good thing, I think, at least maybe just to round that up, is at least Rockstar did come out and they did say that, at least if you want to take them at their word, that it doesn't appear to be impacting the timeline of the game's release, which I think
that's
the initial reaction was, this could set the game back by years. But
yeah, I think that's because they knew who it was and they were working with the FBI and Uber as well and sharing information. And I think because they knew who it was and they had already had a good handle on what was going on with that, because this was a pretty quick arrest after something like this, right?
yeah,
That I feel like they had a good handle on the situation at that point to be able to make a statement.
yeah, and also I guess it could have been to appease shareholders because of the stock price
100%.
went down after it as well. So, but I think with that, we'll probably round up the show. I've got the HCS Grand Finals is about to start, so I want to head off and watch that as well. HCS Orlando's on for any Halo esports fans. But yeah, thank you both very much for joining. Luke, I hope you've enjoyed the show, mate, and obviously hope you're feeling much better soon, pal.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, very much enjoyed it. Nice to go over all of this stuff because it happened. Most of it happened a little while ago, but actually, it kind of reminds you of a lot of things that have been announced. Games that were shown, etc. So it's kind of got me excited for some stuff again. So yeah, thank you very much, and always a pleasure having Mav on as well. Really enjoyed that. So thank you very much for joining us, Mav.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I think we did a good job of covering the vast majority of the stuff that we missed as well. I didn't think we'd be able to cover everything, but I think we managed to squeeze most of it in. So, but yeah, Mav, as Luke said, absolute pleasure to have you on the show again, mate. Hopefully it won't be too long until you're next on, and hopefully it won't be too long until our next show. We'll obviously keep people updated on the Discord and socials. But yeah, Mav, thank you very much for joining again, mate. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show today.
Yeah, it's a good time. Like I said, it's kind of like coming back home a little bit because I've been on the show a few times, and but it's been a while, so I'm always happy to be here. Like what you guys do, Miss Flap, Miss Puxley. I think this is maybe the second time I've been on where didn't get to see those guys. So, but I can't wait to see what y'all do in the future and keep it going, guys. So this is a lot of fun. Shout out to the chat, everybody that showed up, and keep hitting that like button for these guys because it's an awesome, good community show that we have here.
Thank you very much for that, mate. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you everyone in chat or anyone who listens after the show. Really appreciate you guys stopping by. Like I say, hopefully it won't be too much of a break until the next show. We'll keep everyone updated. But yeah, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all on the next one. Oh no, you know what it is? I just realized I didn't have the outro queued. Hold on, try that again. See you all on the next one.